We're about a month away from this year's trade deadline, and in the last month of baseball, the Cubs have gone from for sure buyers to potential sellers. We're going to get into that, and we're going to talk about what pieces could be on the move, what pieces the Cubs could be looking for, and which guys you can guarantee won't be featured in any trades over the next month. That and more on the Cubs Baseball channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Get in that comment section. Let us know if you're leaning buy or if you're leaning sell, and we're going to talk about it all right now. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Cubs Baseball channel. My name's Anthony Pasquale. He's Mick Gillespie on Twitter at Broadcaster Mick. I'm at ant_Pasquale3. Cubs, it's no secret. They're in a rough spot right now. They are in last place, 11 games out of first in the NL Central in a season that you probably thought the Cubs could or should win that division. And now as the trade deadline looms about a month away, the Cubs have some decisions to make. Mick, what are your thoughts on this team right now?
I think it's time to really get serious about selling and trying to build the roster for the future. They're third to last place, 5 games out of the final wild card. But when I look at this roster, I just don't see this team, let alone making the playoffs, but winning the World Series.
Yeah, without a doubt. You look at last year's team that went on that hot stretch in the second part of the season, and the Cubs kind of banked on this team playing a full season like that second half of the season. But what they're getting is the Cubs playing a full season like that first half of the season. Can't preserve a lead, can't seem to score with runners on base. So some decisions definitely need to be made. So I'll start with this question for you, Mick. If the Cubs do go the seller's route, are there any untouchables on this Cubs roster? I'll get one out of the way. Dansby Swanson's untouchable, not because of his play, but because of his contract. You can't move that contract this early into that deal. And I think he's the one guy that you can pretty much guarantee on the current roster will not be moved just because of money purposes. But in terms of talent, potential, those sort of things, who's untouchable, if anybody?
And I agree with you on that. I was going to say the same thing. That's why I don't like long-term deals. But when I look at this roster, really, I don't see anyone as untouchable. It's going to be hard to trade Ian Happ because he's got a no-trade clause, but I'd be willing to trade him. Cody Bellinger, I know he's got an option for next year, but I think maybe a team in the mix would take a chance on him. I just don't, maybe Shota Imanaga, I maybe not trade him. You got a really good deal for him. And if you hope to turn things around fast, you're going to need pitching. So I would say him. I wouldn't trade Justin Steele. I really believe in Justin Steele long-term. And I think that he's proven again this year that he is going to be a good pitcher for years to come. So I'm guessing that those two guys to me are the ones that I would probably keep. But at the same time, they're also the ones that would bring you the most value.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think 2 other interesting names. They're young guys on this Cubs roster. I think Pete Crow-Armstrong's a guy that they're not ready to part with yet. It depends if you consider him like a mainstay in the regular lineup. He is now because of injuries, but he's a guy that I think the Cubs would like to hold on to. And Michael Busch, too. They just gave up a good amount to get him over the offseason. I don't think they're ready to hit abort on that mission quite yet, but would you agree with those 2 guys, Pete Crow and Michael Busch?
Yeah, and I think that also makes the point too of building towards the future, and it kind of swings into the next thing we're going to get into, and that's untouchable prospects. And I look at Pete Crow-Armstrong. I guess I need to transition from prospect because he's out of the prospect guides, and now he's in the Major League. And you saw it, like you guys are starting to see what I told you last year is the guy does amazing things on the bases. One of the runs that he scored against the Giants is what he does, where he's just going to outrun the baseball at times. And it's crazy to see how fast he is, but he also has an ability to kind of feel the play and take advantage of anyone that makes a mistake not getting the ball in. But when you get into the untouchable prospects, I feel like this. Look, Owen Casey, to me, is the future of this team. I think he's your future cleanup guy or 3-hole batter, maybe 5. He's going to drive in a ton of runs. As he works through Iowa, eventually he's going to get to the big leagues. He's someone I wouldn't trade. James Triantas would not trade Triantas. And I know the Cubs are going to field offers for him, but he is a contact hitter. He plays really good at second base. If you traded Nico, I don't know that it would be that much of a loss if you put James Triantos at second base. So I wouldn't trade him. Now, if the Cubs go into sell mode, I wouldn't trade Matt Shaw. Matt Shaw, really over the last couple of weeks, has started to show me things that I didn't see at the beginning of his time in Double-A. He's had a few at bats, battle off pitch, hit home runs in clutch spots, putting the ball in play. You know, he's got to improve his all-around game, but it's happening. And if you decide you're going young, you know, and you're going to give these prospects a chance, you don't want to miss that opportunity with someone that you invested a first-round pick in and is now starting to really turn the season around. And then Cade Horton, would not trade Cade Horton. I don't think they would anyway. And I know that he's been out of action for a little while, but when he comes back, get him healthy and on track. And I'm telling you, he would slot right in there on what is already a great rotation. But I think he's the future of the Cubs pitching wise.
Absolutely. Now, I want to ask you this just to kind of help the viewers to understand kind of where your head is at for certain prospects. If there was a deal that you really felt like you had to make and they wanted one of Matt Shaw or James Triantos, who would you be more willing to let go?
Be a tough decision, but I think for me, I would give up Shaw over Triantos.
Okay.
First round pick. You're going to get a lot of value for the fact that he was drafted first round.
Recently as well.
Yeah, right. Last year, right? But both guys are good. Shaw's shown a little bit more power than Triantos. Triantos has this amazing ability to make contact and spray the ball around the yard. I don't know that Triantos is ever going to be a super power guy, but you can win the World Series with singles, just like you can win it with home runs.
Yeah.
You see that this Cubs team is so reliant on home runs that they lose a lot because you don't hit a home run every day. You know, so you got to have guys that can get up there and basically move the chain. You want a combination of both. But I think that Triantos' all-around game, I like his feet, and I like his wrists, and I like his eye, you know, and I think those are elite. I like Shaw's power. I like Shaw. I like him at shortstop. I think he's underrated at shortstop. Played shortstop at Maryland. Got to get a little bit better on attacking balls at second base. It would be a tough decision. That's kind of where I am right now.
All right. Now, the other one I wanted to ask you was between those outfielders. Obviously, you have Casey number one, but after Casey, you've got Alexander Canario, Kevin Alcantara, the Jaguar. Brennan Davis is another guy generating some steam because of his success this season. How would you rank those three guys behind Casey in the outfield scheme?
I know Canario has a lot of swing and miss, but when he hits the ball, I mean, it really sails. You know, he just has that loud pop. I think that he's someone that could contribute on the Cubs right now. I'm surprised he's not there since they can't seem to drive in runs and hit. But I would probably put him first on the list. Kevin Alcantara, raw talent, still trying to find consistency. He's been like a little bit like Happ, where he gets really hot and then really cold. I mean, he started the season like 1 for 31 and then went through a couple of weeks where I want to say he was like 10 for 21 or something. I mean, you know, against good pitching. Long, lean body, still needs to grow up. The maturity is definitely a little late to arrive, but he's a good player and has a huge ceiling. And then underneath him, I would say Brennan Davis. I've just never really been a huge Brennan Davis believer. I think he's a great guy, and I would love to be wrong on this one, but he's never really been able to hit the high fastball when in clutch situations where you need to put the ball in play. I'm just not confident that he would be able to do that. And I think the worst thing is that he's injured a lot, you know, but I got to tell you, you know, with all of that said, he showed flashes of greatness this year, spring training, and then in Iowa. And then both times when he was getting it going, he got hurt.
Absolutely. Now, it seems pretty obvious so far during this show. I think maybe we might have to do another show to just play devil's advocate about the buy side of things. But so it seems like selling is the option, especially because all the teams that you're chasing in this wild card race are beating the snot out of you right now. The Mets beat you good. The Giants are beating you good. You still have 6 games left with the Nationals, but the Padres took care of business against you as well. So it's going to be hard to leap these teams without a tiebreaker. Plus, you're not playing good baseball. So as this team probably looks towards selling, some obvious names pop into your head, like Mike Tauchman, if he's healthy, that's a guy you can go out and trade. Patrick Wisdom, if anybody wants a low-risk power bat, that's a guy you can trade. But what about some of these guys under more lucrative deals, like a Nico Horner, a Cody Bellinger, Seiya Suzuki? I put together some potential landing spots for those guys. I think because of Mookie Betts' injury and the Dodgers' struggles up the middle, Nico Horner makes a lot of sense there in that lineup. Cody Bellinger is a guy that the Yankees have kind of targeted for years now. And now with Rizzo injured, I think before the season, once they got Verdugo, having Verdugo, Judge, and Soto and Stanton, there wasn't really room for Bellinger, but he could slide in and play first base for a pennant race and do it really well for the Yankees. Obviously, they have that short porch and right, so he'd like hitting there as well. And then Seiya Suzuki, Seattle's in the market for some outfielders. I could have put Happ, but I feel like Suzuki is more likely to waive his no trade clause to go out west because it's closer to Japan. And that's why it was one of the rumored spots for him originally and for Ohtani over the offseason. So those are three potential landing spots. What do you think?
Well, look, the Dodgers are dealing with some injuries right now. Nico's a California guy. I know he's from the Bay Area, but that'd be a fit. The Yankees have talked about Bellinger playing first base. Rizzo still dealing with the injury issues. I know he had a bad back when the Cubs, had him, and then had the concussion thing last year. But Bellinger could go to one of those lineups and all of a sudden be, just to not be relied on as the guy like he is with the Cubs. And then Suzuki would be a great fit for a Mariners team that loves to pitch but can't score a lot of runs. The other thing too is this is going to be another one of these sellers markets because there's so many buyers and there's not many sellers. Cubs made a mistake last year, guys. I hate to tell you this, but they made a mistake last year buying into the fool's gold that was that winning streak that the Cubs had right around the All-Star break.
Right.
And I say fool's gold because if you don't make the playoffs, you're fool for not taking advantage of all of the opportunities that you would have had to go out there and just rake up from, these other teams that are desperate to win.
True.
I'm thinking this, like, is this front office worried about saving their jobs or are they looking to build for the future? And that's a tough question because I think all of us, if we were in that same spot, we'd want to protect our jobs. We want to make sure that we get another opportunity. But let's be honest, this Cubs team, I'm telling you guys this right now, is not a World Series champion. They're just not.
They're not, and you can't act like they are without trying to make them one.
Right.
And this would be it's a step back, but it would lead to steps forward. Let me just put it out there. You fans deserve better than a third rebuild in a decade. That's bullshit. Like, you can't justify that as a fan base. But there's some other interesting options here. Kyle Hendricks would be an interesting buy low option for any team out there if he continues to pitch well. Jameson Taillon, 2 years left on his deal, would generate you a pretty good get back prospect wise. I would hang on to Imanaga. I would definitely hang on to Steele. I think obviously there's some injuries there, but Ben Brown's a guy you want to keep close to you as well. Assad might be an interesting trade candidate, but he could also be a piece that you look at to help you in the future.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I know the next thing you're going to ask me is who the Cubs are going to target. I don't know. I mean, I think when you're in that spot where you're selling, you're basically looking out there for the type of prospects that you can get back and help this team. Now, what I would say is if the Cubs are going to sell, and I think that's what they should do, that they should target players that are close enough to get to the big leagues to make an impact with this group. Don't go after, guys that are 18 years old, like we saw them do last time, right?
Because they're still not ready yet.
Right. Owen Casey was one of those guys. It took a while to get to AAA. Kevin Alcantara is one of those guys.
Preciado, who you don't even hear about anymore.
They need to get guys that are like close right now, like Kai Busch, who the Angels got last year in the Giolito trade. Edgar Quero, they got him from the Angels. Those guys are right on the doorstep of being successful, and being ready to be in the big leagues. That's where the Cubs have to go, because it doesn't have to be a long time of not being any good. It's just that the Cubs got to go out and get get rid of some of these older guys that aren't producing and go out there and get young guys that are ready to bring some energy to this team. I can't sit through another game watching this team sleepwalk. I just can't.
Yeah.
You're either going up or you're going down. There's no middle in sitting around in the game of baseball.
And especially with such a congested National League wild card, and you're playing the worst baseball out of all those teams. So you definitely have to make a decision. And it's one of those that seems to be pointing toward selling. And I think you nailed it. The last few times they've done this dance of selling, they've acquired some really good prospects, but they're years away from the big leagues. And that's why the Cubs have like one of the number 1 or 2 farm systems right now. And sure, you could get a bunch of prospects for these guys and improve that prospect ranking and be the number 1 farm system in all of baseball. But at some point, these guys have to come up and hit to prove why they're prospects. And that's why I think you got to target those guys that are dominating AA or are ready to come up on a contender that doesn't have room for them. So that's what they'll be looking for. You look at the Corbin Burns trade, the Brewers got Ortiz and he's in the mix for Rookie of the Year. That's the type of thing you need. You need a guy that can come and make an impact instantly. So we'll see. The Cubs have some salary to shed. They might end up having to pay for some of it if they want to get some of these deals done. But it definitely looks like all signs are pointing toward a for sale sign at Wrigley Field.
Yep.
Without a doubt. That'll do it for this edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel. For Mick, I'm Anthony. Thank you guys for jumping in and talking some Cubs trade with us. I think we're going to stay optimistic and do a buying episode soon. But the selling seems to be the logical way. That's where this conversation went, without a doubt. But jump in that comment section, like, and subscribe. Hopefully we'll be talking to you guys tomorrow after a Cubs win. They play in just a few hours. So go Cubs.